You've tuned into the Bellingham Podcast for the week of December 3, 2017, episode 59.
Lord help us.
From the city by the Salish Sea, I am AJ Barsay.
And weighing in at 255 pounds, I am Chris Powell. On this episode, Pop Quiz. What if the power goes out in your house and you can't binge watch Netflix? We'll help you avoid panicking. Plus, we'll share tips to enjoy the trend that's sweeping the nation. Happy holiday hibernation. Towards the start of December and all over the internet, AJ and I search for items that are the best bet. Technology watches and EDC gear that's built to last. Let's get this party started. This is the Bellingham Podcast.
Up on the podcast, reindeers call.
That's right. How's it going, AJ?
Good, Chris. I'm a bit tired. How you doing?
I'm happy to be in December now. Let's get this month started.
Yeah.
November was spirited.
It was.
With snow and holidays and
windstorms.
Other things. Yes. And so let's just enter into December with a positive mindset.
I'm trying. On that note, on the top of the podcast, I just want to remind everybody, when you're driving this winter holiday season, whether there's snow on the ground or debris on the ground, or you're just driving around, give ample spacing to the people that you are driving around with. And when lights turn yellow, stop instead of trying to gun through it. That's my little public service announcement.
If you want to learn more, hit us up on hashtag BHAM podcast, Bellingham Podcast on Twitter.
Ham, because it's tasty.
That's right. So we got a lot to talk about.
Yeah.
What's first?
Well, I have a new watch.
Tell me about your new watch, AJ.
So my loving wife, got me a new watch that I have been eyeing. I've mentioned it before on the show. It's one of the SNK 803, 805, 807, 809 series.
Hike.
Hike, which just means black dial, beige dial, green dial, blue dial. It's all the numbers mean. But the SNK 807 is what I have, which is the blue dial. I love this thing. It's a smaller watch, and I've mentioned before, I've got a smaller wrist, so it works well with me. It's kind of that vintage 37 millimeter area.
It's the wheelhouse.
Yeah, I mean, perhaps a bigger framed wrist gent like yourself this might not appeal to you. It's substantially smaller than your SKX 007, if you're familiar with that. But I'm also doing what's called a watch fast. So, much like we talked about off the air, sometimes you have many guitars. With me, I have many watches, but I do kind of, especially if it's a new one, I kind of stick with it for at least 1 month. One, it gives me something to do on Instagram. That'd be Instagram.com/AJ Barsay.
Of course.
But also it's for somebody like me who collects, like you and I talked off the mic a little bit. You are a one watch guy. You are the unicorn in the watch fam.
Well, thank you. I have a daily driver, and I at this point I have not gone over. I'm sticking my toe in the watch pool.
Yeah.
And I have one that works just right, and it's my daily driver, and it's what I wear every day, and I'll swap the straps out depending on if I wear black or if I wear dark gray or if I wear...
Because there is no other shade.
Pretty much. Dark gray is a distant cousin of black. But anyway, a little variety that way. But the actual watch is that stays the same at this point in my life. That may change depending on how you're able to use Jedi mind tricks on me, or through research I can afford other cousin devices.
I will whittle you down, Chris. But no. So I mean, I have several watches, Japanese made, Swiss made. Just I'm one of those weird collectors where I don't specialize. Like, oh, I want every kind of mill sub there is, or oh, I like chronographs. With that regard, I'm kind of more of a minimalist. Like, I like form and specifically the function. It needs to be able to tell me the time.
Mm-hmm.
For me, I like day dates. So the SNK uses the exact same movement as ours, the 7S26 movement. And so it's tried and true. I timed it. It's actually plus or minus like 2 seconds when I haven't had to regulate it, which is great. So yeah, it's really cool, and it's dirt cheap. It's like 55 bones on Amazon in any color. I just like the blue because it kind of has that vintage IWC, like kind of like the pilots, World War II pilots era. It's got a Miramar dial. where it has the hour track, and the hour hand is smaller so that it tracks in the middle, and then you have the minute hand, which sweeps around the edge with all the minute indices.
So AJ, you mentioned that you got this on Amazon, for about $50 or so.
Yeah,
interesting. That could be a potential reasonably priced holiday gift for a special someone in your life that you may be able to get them something unique.
Yeah, and we mentioned this before. If you go back to the Father's Day edition, that's when I first recommended this, because I've been eyeing it. But no, I got it. I didn't. My wife did. Not Black Friday, which I think is the next topic we're talking about. So, what did you do for Black Friday?
Well. Had a nice Thanksgiving with the family. We drove down south on Interstate 5. If you're from the Northwest, that's right. Visited some friends and some family, but I got to go 12 rounds with some phone companies. So we've ramped up. Warning, folks, this is going to be about a 3 or 4 minute monologue.
You don't see this right now, but I'm pushing the soapbox over to Chris so he can get it onto the public square.
So basically, my family and I have used a phone carrier that rhymes with lint. And unfortunately, for the past 2 years that we were under contract, our signal in our residence was not very strong. And as we are driving around this beautiful area of the world known as Bellingham, Washington, I see 1X on a lot of my phone signal readouts, and that was causing a lot of concern. Got to the point where we moved to another wireless phone carrier that rhymes with Click It. Actually, no. Why be funny about it? Cricket Wireless is an MVNO. In past shows we've talked about MVNOs. Basically, they provide mobile phone service by jumping on the big boys' mobile phone towers. Cricket uses AT&T towers, which in this area is saturated. Going away from a big company in which you have phones that you have acquired or paying a monthly fee for that are provided by the phone company, it is a daunting task. And we all know I'm a professional tech. I know how to do this stuff. I do this stuff for a living. I had, AJ, a horrendous time trying to get these phones that were from Sprint to get over to Cricket. And here's why. Our contract was up. However, the phones that we had in this promotion that they had called iPhone Forever back in 2016, this was on a lease plan in which in order to get this phone to work on Cricket's system, I had to pay off the balance of the lease, fair enough, and also to request them to get it unlocked. They can't do this in the store. You have to call customer service.
Oh, no.
And then I heard the sound of millions of voices going, oh. Yes, I had to call customer service 4 times because you just can't get it done in one shot. And so Thanksgiving Eve, Thanksgiving Day, Black Friday, and Saturday, I made 4 calls in 4 days in which I spoke with various people. And no, I'm not going to go explicit on this one, but these customer service people were not that helpful. They were reading off a script. I don't think the names that they announced themselves as were their actual names. I requested that these phones be paid off. Any balance that I had, I'm willing to pay off.
Right.
So we've already moved over to
Chunk of Cashola. They should be yours.
Didn't happen. I had to get things escalated I know the call's being recorded. I'm saying in plain sentences, I'm not happy with this service. I'm not happy with this result. I would like to speak with your supervisor, please.
Your script.
My script. And eventually, mercifully, I got a call from Escalated Incident Management. Colleen from Sprint, thank you so much. You made my holiday season start off in a good way. She figured out what was going on, and let me make this clean. Unscrewed up what was screwed up.
Yes.
And so basically, we are on Cricket Wireless, in which I was able to save my family $60 a month on our bill and still have the same amount of data, if not more, and better cell phone coverage service. Here's the takeaway, boys and girls. In the future, you may already have a phone that you currently are using. In the future, when you are looking to upgrade a phone, and we've talked about this, every episode, you want to consider buying a phone from the manufacturer, not from the phone carrier. Don't be like Chris. Don't get a phone from the carrier and go through this trip to Mordor to try to get it over to another setup. So if you're an iPhone user and you enjoy iPhones, go to apple.com, scroll down to the bottom of the page. We have a link in our show notes, and in small print, you'll see refurbished and clearance. These are devices that are up to Apple standards with a 90-day warranty that you can buy directly from Apple, and they come with an unlocked SIM, which means even though I was using my phone on Sprint, it popped in another SIM, and look, I'm working on AT&T signals.
Because you unlocked it, and now you really own it.
Now I own this device. This is mine. I don't have to give it back and trade in for a newer model. If you are an Android user, we talked about this last episode, the previous episode. If you buy a phone from Google, get a Google Pixel, you will have a good experience with the software that is on there. You'll get updates very, very quickly.
Yeah.
And if you buy it directly from Google, you will probably pay a premium because they're only selling the newer model. If you go to, what is that website we always go to? Yeah, we don't need to say it. If you go to that site, that wonderful online shopping extravaganza, a Google Pixel phone version 1 mid-tier is about starting at $480. Also, if you go to oneplus.net, you can pay full price for the latest phone, but if you go to that website that we always enjoy going to, this starts at $425. You buy this outright, it's unlocked, you own it, go to the carrier that you want, and avoid this holiday headache.
Yeah, well, what really is kind of lame is that, I mean, you're trying to get out of this, you were leasing it, that's fine, but man, to front up Cashola, that much Cashola, to free the phones, right this close to the holidays, that sucks.
We could talk later about family finances and other things like that, but we were good boys and girls this year, and so it was time.
Right, but I guess what I'm hitting at is this is something else that you and I talk about is when you go, whether it's a device or a piece of leather or whatever, cry once, pay for it up front. Mm-hmm. And that way you don't have to get it, coming and going. That's kind of your story, you ended up paying, Chris, at the beginning, the middle, and the end.
We are dazzled by 5 phones, $100 a month. Well, that's great, but there's so much more that is lying underneath.
Taxes, fees.
And to pay it outright if you want to own it or bring it, if you don't want to get another phone to start over again. There's so much more that you got to consider. If you get a device, like you buy a laptop, how many of us lease a laptop?
Crickets.
No
fun.
Yeah, Cricket Wireless.
No pun intended.
We don't lease our technology, but we're doing that with our phones.
Yeah.
Very few of us, some of us lease our cars, and there's good reasons why.
Right.
And I'm not dissing that. But I'm beating the drum again. It's a pretty sizable outlay of cash right out of the gates. But I guarantee you, folks, hit us up if you find this to be different. Area code 201-731-8324. Leave us a voicemail if you don't save money in the long run by buying a phone outright when you really do the math. So had a tough time. We're in a better space, a little less in the savings account, but I think in the future, since we're saving $60 a month with this new carrier,
10 months, that's 600 bones.
Less than 10 months to be able to recoup what was spent. However, we get a lot better experience due to the increased signal coverage that we have.
Groovy.
So, pop quiz, AJ.
Okay.
Well, actually, recently. In this area, we had a couple power outages that affected a lot of people, and how does one navigate a power outage? Now, I know this is a laughable question,
right?
But
it dawned on me because in Bellingham, it is known that if you're in downtown Bellingham, you usually don't go out of power. It's just very rare. Mm-hmm. Even out in the suburbs, for lack of better terms, of Bellingham, the burbs. You very rarely run out of power. Now your cable or your internet might go down. That's a different story. But power is pretty well. It stays on most days out of the year. We had about 3 windstorms hit us in the area, back to back to back, and we're talking
40 to 50 mile an hour gusts.
Global warming exists style. There was advisories.
Yep.
And so anyway, out where we live, which is out north of Bellingham, we I mean, you and I think we went out of power like 9 o'clock in the morning.
We had multiple power outages, but it did not last very long.
Yeah.
However, some people were out for quite some time.
Yeah. So, I mean, I'm just up the hill from you, and I was out for about 2-3 hours. And it was interesting because it's the first time since I've been in Bellingham that the power was out sustained. Usually it'll pop off and then pop back on. And that causes havoc on your electrical devices, which I'm going to touch on in a second. But it also reminded me that not everybody, I'm more of an outdoorsy person. So for me, I just go out to my garage, I grab my REI rucksack that has all my camping gear, and I'm making coffee because I have backpacked, I have traveled the world, and there's one thing about me that will always exist. On a Saturday morning, I will have my cup of coffee, Chris, wherever I am in the world.
This is taken from the book of AJ, chapter 3, beginning with the first verse.
Thou shalt not be without coffee.
That's right.
So anyway, so I went out and I started grabbing my kit, and I realized, self? Do you think that everybody who lives urban is as well prepped as I am? And so this section I dubbed just a touch of preppin'.
It's a good refresher.
Yeah. If you're an outdoorsy person, this is going to be kind of a no dub. But if you are not an outdoorsy person and you just want to be prepared, whether it is in the event of, hurricanes or windstorms in our case, tsunamis, zombie apocalypse, whatever. It's good to have some just bare essential tools, okay? And all the stuff that I'm going to throw out is stuff that is not the extreme, like I'm not going tinfoil hat, 299 days prepping type of thing. Like I'm just saying this is just stuff that every other person should have in a tote, okay? No differently than you should have bottles of water. Just keep it around the house or the apartment. The first thing, really simply, an LED flashlight.
That could work.
There's lots of them. You do not have to spend $100 on a tactical anything, but I usually encourage you to look for an LED flashlight with a rechargeable battery or one that takes regular batteries and get rechargeable batteries for it. That way, one, you're not, here's my green part of me talking here. You're not making a whole bunch of e-waste because that's kind of my shtick here. There is a company called Panasonic. They bought this really cool technology called Eneloop from Sanyo, both Japanese companies. And Eneloop they're on the 4th generation of their battery technology, and they're rechargeable batteries. Now, if you're saying, I've done the rechargeable batteries before, AJ, the problem is that once you recharge them, you sit them on a shelf, by the time you need them, they're dead. I got you covered. Eneloop has a different kind of technology in their cells where they have a shelf life of like 5 years. They don't deplete like the old school NEMA NiCad rechargeables. They'll basically drop like to 80% and then just stabilize. So at worst, you reach for, let's say you recharge them, you forget about them, and a year goes by and, oh man, the power goes out. Well, you have at least an 80% charge. Now you're probably thinking, well, why don't I just get disposables? Think about it, folks. You buy a pack of disposable batteries, you leave it up on a shelf, power goes out, what happens? They're dead anyway. That's all happened to us. So at least this way, you're not throwing away, 1, money, and 2, making more e-waste. At least this way you can recharge them. And the reason why I'm going with the rechargeable is the other thing I want to throw out there is, do you have a UPS, an uninterrupted power source? I have 2 in my house, one for my photography equipment, and the other one is attached to my entertainment center. Now, UPSs are super affordable. You can get them as cheap as about $50-$60. And this is for 2 reasons. 1, protects in the case of a power surge. And 2, in the event the power goes out, your comms are up. Sometimes when the power goes out, your cable and your internet can still be active. Or you can turn on the TV if you have local rabbit ears. You can tune in to find out what's going on in the zombie apocalypse purge. Or you can use that to charge your devices. Again, this is emergency circumstances. And if you have rechargeable batteries and you need to charge them up, you see where I'm going? You have a big generator, basically. You take your Eneloop, you plug it in, and it siphons off of the big burly battery. I have links in the show notes for some recommendations. Like I said, you do not have to spend the $200 gargantuan solar power driven. It's just simple as the same thing that you would plug into your entertainment center. Use it for double duty. It protects your gear, and in the event that you need to charge something, it's there because you don't know. I was thinking like Puerto Rico. Puerto Rico's been without power for months. Yep. Here we're fortunate that we don't have those circumstances. Hashtag first world problems right here. We were out for a couple of hours. But it's just something I want people to think about. You can double dip with your tech in this case. The other thing that I want to throw out is a camp stove. I have several for different purposes.
One for coffee?
Yes, one for coffee. I have a propane and a butane one for super light backpacking stuff, and one for like truck camping. When you're using your camp stove, just public service announcement, don't use them indoors because that makes this thing called carbon monoxide. It's bad. It can cause bodily harm and death. So if you do use it out in your garage, well-ventilated areas and stuff. But if you have that on hand, you can provide hot water, you can cook. And the thing with hot water is we have a local place called REI, which is great. Here's what's great is you can buy backpacking food. And I usually have backpacking food on hand anyway. Just grab like 5 of them, and they're pretty tasty these days. Like you can have lasagna, chicken cacciatore, and all this other jazz. Just keep like 5 of them. They're basically civilian MREs, okay? But tastier. And what's great is you keep 5 of these in a bin with all this other gear except for the UPS that's going to be in your house anyway. And you're only out maybe 150 bones, but you're at least a little bit better prepped. That's all I wanted to throw out.
Very good. You have a really extensive list on our show notes as far as a good checklist. I only found a couple things that could augment or maybe enhance your list. I'm a fan of light, and I don't fear a lot in this world. I don't fear people. I fear having to listen to today's pop music for eons and eons, but that's a different story. I like being able to see where I'm going in the dark, and that's when most power outages seem to occur, when they're when the lights go out. Duh. Candles are a good thing. However, I am very cautious about suggesting that due to a potential fire hazard. An indoor oil lamp, an indoor oil lamp with lamp oil is a little bit less of a risk because it's encased in glass.
Right.
It has an adjustable flame wick. Thank you. And it looks nice.
It does.
It has a little bit of a touch of the old school. On that particular website that we always talk about, that I'm not going to mention this episode, you can go online and you can pick one up for about 20 hours. The thing is, an indoor oil lamp can burn for 25 hours. Some candles, depending on what you get, they don't burn that long, or otherwise you get wick problems with the wax. Wick wax. And then also don't forget to include an extra supply of lamp oil because you may run out, because that's not going to stay around forever. Also, along the lines with the LED light that you mentioned, AJ, there are, you see a lot of bicyclists use this, but to get an LED headlamp for your family may help as they are navigating around the house. So you don't have to take that oil lamp with you like the old person in their stocking cap and pajamas as they're walking around the house. To get an LED headlamp could help with just navigating in a darkened home. About $24 for a good quality one that had a lot of good ratings from that site that I won't talk about. But and also one other thing to consider, athletes practice. They go through drills. They run the plays. Musicians will rehearse their songs that they're going to play live. Why not take an evening when you have the power on consistently in your house and simulate? Boom, we don't have any power. Turn off all of the electronics. Turn off of all the power off your phones if you need to, and just try to go through the process, because the more you become familiar with the situation, the better you will be, and to decrease the panic.
Yeah.
As I mentioned in the hook from the intro, we don't want you to be in a state of anxiety or panic. You'll just be like, oh yeah, power's out. Now we know what to do.
Right.
Give this a try on a Sunday evening for a couple hours just to see how you feel. Because the more you get used to it, the more you can have success with it when we get these high windstorms here in Bellingham, and to be able to help with the family as well.
Well, and also, especially if something's changed in your family situation, like I have a kid now. Like I'm power goes out. I mean, I grew up in the woods. Okay. So like, I'm used to that, but now having a wife and a child, like, if the power goes out, how do I make food for my son? Mm-hmm. It was a good, I wasn't fretting. Like we were out for 3 hours. It's not a big deal, but it spurred on this topic. The other thing that it reminded me of, in your local area, in the event of something uber catastrophe, when cell phones maybe don't work or the internet is super down, check around your neighborhoods and find who your local ham or amateur radio operator is, because I am one. I'm a ham radio operator, have been since I was a child. See my bio on Bellingham Podcast. I broke out my gear. All of my gear is always charged and ready to rock and roll. But it was good for me to practice just, checking into a net and all this other jazz. that I haven't done in years. Yeah, I just, since I've been up to Bellingham, I haven't really rebuilt my arsenal of radio array. I still have my basic stuff, but it was a good practice for me and to touch base with some of the other hams in the area. So check pretty much every community in Bellingham, whether you know it or not. Us hams are around, and it's just good to know because, again, being just a little bit prepped for small things like this in the event that something bigger happens, at least you can provide for your family.
All right, sounds good. So let's finish things off with a happy topic. Mm-hmm. The weather's getting colder.
Weather outside is frightful.
That's right. So we're going to be spending more time indoors. AJ Barce, photographer extraordinaire. How do you spend time when you're home during the holidays?
So I've got two recommendations. One, I have the YouTube on my TV that has a UPS, and I found this new channel called Watchfinder & Co. Yes, it's a watch related thing. This is really cool. So even my wife can dig this. Watchfinder & Co. does these short series. They're kind of like Hodinkee and these other watch outlets. They sell you watches and different devices and stuff. What's cool is they have the series called An Expert from Every Angle. I think it's the series name of it. And it's listed under their watch reviews. And that's a horrible name because really what they do is they take a watch from yesteryear and it's new contemporary. And it's gorgeously shot. And the guy is very well spoken and well read. And for 9 minutes or so, he will give you the backstory of where like the Omega Seamaster from yesteryear came from, why it existed, the purpose of it being designed and built the way that it is, and what it is today. It's not a sales pitch. It's just this guy telling you the history. It's like a history channel of a specific watch or a brand or a technology. So I would encourage it. It's really cool and it's really short. Even if you're not a super uber geek of watches, you'll learn. Even my wife learned something, why certain things are designed the way they are.
It's an interesting story, which is a theme I think we're banging on and all the time. Like stories matter.
Right. Along that same lines, in my analog endeavors, there is I pre-ordered this documentary I've been waiting for it to come out called California Typewriter. Mm-hmm. It's a story. I haven't watched it all the way through because I have a little one, and watching feature films takes 3 days. But Tom Hanks is in it, John Mayer's in it, and basically it's a story of typewriters, and there is a subculture of people, I am one of them, who still uses typewriters. Take a look at it. It's on every outlet you can think of, iTunes, whatever. It's reasonably priced. I mean, probably you can get it at your local Film is Truth or something.
Much less than a movie ticket in the monstrosity that we have here in Bellingham.
Yeah, but if you're into it, is very differently shot. It's very much shot like an indie documentary. But if you're into typewriters and analog tech, take a look at it. What about you, Chris? What are you hibernating with?
So I always enjoy hearing stories, mm-hmm. and I've really enjoyed documentaries as of late. And there's one that came out recently that I have on my hit list that I want to be able to enjoy sometime soon. Back in the 30s and 40s, there was a bombshell named a beautiful woman named Hedy Lamarr, and she was an actress, and she was the most beautiful woman in that time. The documentary name is called Bombshell, the Hedy Lamarr story. And this is a story about a beautiful woman who also was a secret inventor of secure Wi-Fi, Bluetooth, and GPS communications. That has my interest. Check out imdb.com and then Bombshell for the movie synopsis and such, and you'll probably be able to find it in various outlets like you mentioned. It's probably going to be an hour and a half that's well spent. Second thing is one that, I always watch this about maybe every quarter just to renew my vigor for what I subscribe to. There on Netflix, there is a minimalism documentary. And especially as we're approaching the holiday season and potentially guilty feelings we have about spending a whole lot of money on presents that we, would be inclined to give people. This is a way to learn about how your life might be made better with less. And it's a great journey of these two guys who, are choosing experiences over things. And I found it to be very helpful. I saw the initial screening of it. I was very impressed, and it's on my regular Netflix watch list.
I've seen it too. It's good.
Finally, thus begins the season where we hear the same 20 or 30 Christmas carols. Stop it. Thank you. We hear the same Christmas carols over and over again. got a new spin on it for you. If you're like, hey kids, are you like me? Do you like that loud guitar rock music? That too. There is a guitarist named Gary Hoey, Hoey. He has been an instrumental guitarist for since the late 80s, back in the MTV Headbangers Ball days. I've been a fan of him for now 20-some years. I've seen him play live. He's an excellent musician. He took these traditional Christmas songs and rocked them up.
Like Trans-Siberian Orchestra style?
Very similar. Trans-Siberian Orchestra is rather symphonic.
Right.
This one is chunk guitar.
Oh, got it.
With really nice melody lines like Joe Satriani and Steve Vai, and very similar in style. Go to a website or go to your Apple Music or go to your Spotify and type in the search box, Ho Ho Hoey. Or just type in Gary Hoey, because he's well known for like surf hard rock, but he also has done a 2 CD collection of rocked up Christmas songs.
Groovy.
I definitely think this would put a different spin, no pun intended, on your holiday music listening experience.
That's cool.
Let's wrap it up.
Let's wrap it up. That wraps up for this edition of the Bellingham Podcast. Thank you again so much for listening to us, rating us, reviewing us on iTunes, Google Play, SoundCloud, and everywhere else you love to listen to us, including Chris's very favorite,
TuneIn Radio. Thank you very much.
TuneIn Radio. Our show has been greatly growing, and also the outlets that we're in. More and more places are picking us up, so thank you so much. And a lot of that has to do with you. So on iTunes especially, if you can give us a couple of stars or give us a review, we greatly appreciate it. It just helps with the search for other people to find us. If you're in the Bellingham area, you might be listening to us on KMRE 102.3 FM.
Low power.
Low power. Community radio here in the heart of the city of subdued excitement. On that note, from the city by the Salish Sea, I am AJ Barsay.
And I'm Chris Powell. Thank you once again for joining us on the Bellingham Podcast.
What, you don't like my little deck the halls thing?
I don't like deck the halls in general, dude.
Really?
What? I don't want to deck my halls. I want to keep them bare. That's a minimalist to me.
Deck the halls with minimalism. La 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 la.